Ever wondered how mathematics can predict human behavior in conflict and cooperation scenarios? Welcome to the intriguing world of game theory. This fascinating field of study takes a deep dive into the strategic interactions that shape our world, from the grand stage of international politics to the delicate dance of social relationships. Game theory uses mathematical models to predict the outcomes of these complex interactions. It's like a chess match where every move is calculated and every decision could tip the scales one way or the other. This isn't just about numbers and equations. It's about understanding the hidden patterns in human behavior. The applications are endless, from economics to environmental policy and even cybersecurity. Each scenario is a game, each decision a move, each outcome a result of strategy. One of the most interesting models in game theory is the prisoner's dilemma. In the next scene, we'll unpack what that means and why it's so important. Stay tuned. Imagine two criminals arrested and held in separate cells. Their fate depends on their choices to confess or remain silent. This is the heart of the prisoner's dilemma, a thought experiment that showcases the complexities of decision-making and strategic interaction. Let's dive deeper into this. Picture it: two partners in crime, arrested and interrogated separately. They're faced with a choice: betray their partner and confess, or stay loyal and remain silent. They can't communicate or predict what the other will do. The outcome hinges on their individual decisions. Here are the four possible outcomes. If both stay silent, they get a light sentence. Let's say 1 year in jail. This is the ideal outcome, the best for the group. But if one confesses while the other remains silent, the confessor walks free, while their silent partner gets a heavy sentence, say 3 years. This is the worst outcome for the individual who stays silent. If both confess, hoping to benefit at the expense of the other, they each get a moderate sentence, 2 years in jail. This is better for each individual than if they remain silent while their partner confessed, but worse than if both had remained silent. It's clear that the rational choice for each individual, considering they can't predict what their partner will do, is to confess. But when both follow this logic, they end up with a collectively irrational outcome, a longer sentence for both. The prisoner's dilemma reveals a fascinating paradox where individual rationality can lead to collective irrationality. It's a powerful model, but it's based on a one-time interaction. What happens when the same players face the same dilemma multiple times? Can they learn from past decisions? Can they develop strategies to improve their outcomes? But what if this game is played repeatedly, not just once? That's where the iterated prisoner's dilemma comes in. Let's explore this in our next scene. Imagine playing the prisoner's dilemma multiple times with the same opponent, where each round's decision could influence future ones. This introduces us to the iterated prisoner's dilemma, a fascinating twist on the classic game theory scenario. In this version of the game, the one-off, isolated decision-making of the original prisoner's dilemma gets replaced by a series of interactions. This introduces a whole new layer to the game, with the past influencing the future. It's like a chess game where your every move depends not only on the current state of the board, but also on the moves made before. So how does this change the dynamics of the game? Well, it opens up the possibility for strategy development. Players can now base their decisions on the outcomes of previous rounds. If your opponent betrayed you in the last round, you might decide to retaliate in the next. Or if they've been consistently cooperative, you might choose to reciprocate their generosity. This leads to an interesting shift in the game's balance. Suddenly, short-term gains from betrayal might not be as appealing if they risk damaging a beneficial long-term relationship. The potential for future interactions encourages players to think ahead, to consider the repercussions of their decisions. Moreover, the iterated version of the game allows for the emergence of complex strategies. Some players might adopt a tit-for-tat approach where they mirror their opponent's last move. Others might choose to always cooperate, hoping to encourage a similar response from their opponent. And some might opt for a more unpredictable approach, hoping to keep their opponent guessing. But remember, this is a simplified model, a game. In the real world, human interaction is far more complex. Misunderstandings can happen, errors can occur. So, how might these real-life elements influence the dynamics of the iterated prisoner's dilemma? Would they disrupt the carefully crafted strategies, or perhaps create opportunities for even more nuanced gameplay? Let's delve into these questions in the next scene. In the real world, however, misunderstandings and errors can occur. How might they influence the game? Now, imagine our prisoners are playing the game through messages, and sometimes a message gets lost or misinterpreted. This is our world, isn't it? We're not always in the same room, face to face. We communicate through emails, texts, social media, and sometimes things get lost in translation. When we bring this reality into the iterated prisoner's dilemma, the game becomes even more fascinating. Suddenly, there are errors and misunderstandings to contend with. A player might choose to cooperate, but the other player misinterprets the move as a betrayal. This creates a new dynamic, a new layer of complexity. Think of it this way: you send a friend a message to meet for coffee, but they read it wrong and think you've canceled. Now they're upset, and you're confused. A classic case of misunderstanding. In the iterated prisoner's dilemma, such a situation could lead to a cycle of retaliation, where each player continuously defects, thinking the other is betraying them, when in reality, it all started with a simple miscommunication. This is where the concept of forgiveness enters the equation. In the face of errors and misunderstandings, forgiveness can be a powerful strategy. If one player chooses to cooperate, even after being betrayed, it can break the cycle of retaliation. This act of forgiveness can reset the game, bringing it back to a state of cooperation and mutual benefit. Forgiveness, in this context, is not just about being nice. It's a strategic move, a method to maximize long-term benefits. Because in the iterated prisoner's dilemma, the game doesn't end after one round. It keeps going, and holding grudges can lead to an endless cycle of defection, which benefits no one. Incorporating errors and misunderstandings into the model makes it more realistic, more reflective of our unpredictable, often confusing world. And with this added complexity comes a greater need for strategies like forgiveness, which can turn a potential downward spiral into a positive, cooperative interaction. The model can be further optimized for realism by adjusting various parameters. But that's a topic for another time. For now, let's move on to the real-world applications of this intriguing game theory model. Game theory, including the iterated prisoner's dilemma, has found its way into many real-world applications. It's not just a theoretical construct, it's a tool that can shine light on the dynamics of human interactions and decision-making. Consider the Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension that had the world holding its breath. The stakes were incredibly high, with the specter of nuclear annihilation looming large. Now, imagine the iterated prisoner's dilemma in this context. The two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, were locked in a recurring game of high-stakes decisions. Cooperation, in the form of arms control agreements, could lead to mutual benefits. But defection, or breaking these agreements, could potentially offer a strategic advantage, albeit with the risk of mutual destruction. Game theory, and specifically the iterated prisoner's dilemma, played a significant role in shaping strategies during this period. It helped policymakers understand the potential outcomes of their decisions and the importance of cooperation, even in the face of possible defection. This application of game theory may have contributed to preventing nuclear escalation during the Cold War. But the iterated prisoner's dilemma isn't just relevant to high-stakes geopolitical conflicts. It can also help us understand everyday situations. Think about interactions in a workplace, for instance. Cooperation can lead to a positive and productive environment, while selfish decisions can create a cycle of retaliation and mistrust. By understanding these models, we can better navigate our own decision-making processes. We can see the potential outcomes of cooperation versus defection, and the importance of forgiveness in breaking cycles of retaliation. We can learn to balance our own interests with those of others, promoting cooperation and mutual benefit. Indeed, the iterated prisoner's dilemma opens up a fascinating avenue for understanding the complexities of cooperation and conflict. We've traveled through the intriguing world of game theory, explored the prisoner's dilemma, and its iterated version. We've seen how this simple model can offer profound insights into human interactions and decision-making processes. We've delved into the role of errors and misunderstandings and how they add complexity and realism to the model. We've also discovered the power of forgiveness in breaking cycles of retaliation, a strategic advantage that can change the course of the game. We've looked at how adjusting parameters, such as the impact of positive and negative outcomes and the probability of errors, can optimize the model for realism. We've traced the historical applications of this model, from its potential role in preventing nuclear escalation during the Cold War to its relevance in our everyday lives. Remember, even in a dilemma, the choice is always yours. Choose wisely, and till the next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of game theory.